After Dad mentioned his will, my sister became convinced I wasn't family and replaced my test results, but the evidence destroyed her lies. I'm 28. My sister Rachel is 31 years old. We've always had a decent relationship. We're not particularly tight, but we get along well at family gatherings and occasionally text each other, as is customary for siblings. Our father is fairly well off, owning a thriving contracting business that he started from nothing. Mom died 8 years ago from cancer. Dad began discussing amending his will approximately 6 months ago. Nothing dramatic, he simply stated that he wanted to ensure that everything was in order, possibly by establishing some trusts. It's rather natural for someone in their early 60s to be thinking about retirement and legacy preparation. Rachel and I are his only children, therefore we would split his assets. Rachel's behavior toward me has changed dramatically since then. I mean entirely different. She moved from being a normal sister to something I can't even describe. Suspicious and unfriendly. She keeps making bizarre comments about how I don't fit in with the family, and how I've always been different. We were having dinner at Dad's house when she first said something. She was going through old family photos on his mantle and came across this image of me as a newborn. She stared at it for far too long before saying, "You know, you really don't look like either Mom or Dad in this picture." I shrugged it off because really newborn images are very useless for assessing family resemblance. All babies resemble wrinkly potatoes, but she kept going. "No, seriously, look at your nose. Look at your eyes. Where did those features even come from?" She held the photograph up to my face. Dad was in the kitchen and did not hear this conversation, but I was starting to feel uneasy. I told her she was being odd and that many children do not look like their parents. I mean, genetics are complicated, right? Sometimes you inherit your great-grandmother's chin, your uncle's eye form, or whatever. But Rachel just gave me that look, as if I was lying about something. What really bothers me is how she started talking about me being false among other family members. At my cousin's birthday party last month, I overheard her telling our aunt that she had always felt something was wrong with me. When she noticed I was listening, she didn't even look ashamed. She simply shrugged and walked away. The strangest thing is that she has gotten concerned with family genetics and inheritance issues. She keeps telling stories about families who found horrific truths through DNA testing. She emailed me 3 separate articles about people discovering they were adopted or had different fathers. She is continuously highlighting how DNA does not lie, and how science can uncover the truth about family links. Last week, she cornered me at Dad's house and asked if I had ever pondered about my biological parents. I was in astonishment and didn't know what to say. I asked her what she meant, and she said she's been thinking about family genetics lately, and how different I am from everyone else in the family. I tried to talk to Dad about Rachel's conduct, but I didn't want to get too detailed because explaining it sounds insane. I just said that Rachel seems worried lately, and has been saying strange things. He claimed he had noticed she had been more intense recently, but assumed it was due to work stress. The thing that is really playing with my head is Rachel's apparent total conviction in whatever hypothesis she has. She doesn't appear to be malicious or attempting to stir up trouble. She appears really persuaded that everyone is keeping a major secret about my parentage from her. But here's something I know for certain. I am Dad's biological child. I have his hands, his chuckle, and his inclination to become enraged at inanimate objects that don't work properly. I have Mom's stubbornness and strange double-jointed thumbs. I resemble both of them in distinct ways. I'm starting to wonder if Rachel is experiencing a mental health crisis. The timing of Dad's will update appears too serendipitous to overlook. Is she so concerned about inheritance that she has convinced herself I am not truly family? Is this a psychological response to Mom's passing that has only recently surfaced? I'm not sure what to do here. Rachel's conduct is becoming more intense, not less. She began making statements about DNA testing and uncovering the truth in front of Dad. He just laughs it off, but I can tell he is beginning to sense something is up with her. Any guidance would be greatly appreciated since I am utterly confused here. Update 1. So, remember how I mentioned she was obsessed with DNA testing and family genetics? So she's chosen to turn her hobby into a family pastime. Rachel arrived at Dad's place a few days after my initial post with her presentation on genealogy and family history. She'd printed out articles on DNA testing, family tree research, and genetic genealogy. She sold it as a fantastic bonding activity in which our entire extended family could help create a thorough family tree using DNA analysis. Her presentation was actually quite impressive. She had investigated various testing businesses, evaluated their accuracy rates, and examined their databases for genealogy information. She discussed how we may connect with distant relatives, identify family migration trends, and possibly answer some family mysteries regarding our great-great-grandparents. Dad became immediately fascinated. He is fascinated by family history and has long desired to trace our ancestors. Rachel had done her homework and knew precisely how to pique his interest. She discussed how we could identify ties to historical individuals or learn about family relatives who immigrated from Europe. But this is what made my skin crawl. Rachel insisted that everyone contribute to the project's success. She explained that DNA comparisons would only be useful if we had samples from numerous generations and family branches. She also underlined the importance of both Dad and I participating because we are the direct male bloodline. She made it sound really fair and scientific. She continued to discuss how DNA testing has improved to the point where it may disclose astonishing insights about family links and genetic inheritance patterns. She described how some families uncovered famous forebears or found kin they had no idea existed. The most deceptive part was how she packaged it as a gift for Dad. She stated that she intended to make this gorgeous family tree as a surprise for his next birthday, replete with DNA analysis and historical study. She presented it as a thoughtful, kind gesture from a daughter who wished to honor her father's interest in family history. Dad ate it thoroughly. He began talking about how much Mom would have enjoyed this endeavor and how wonderful it would be to finally have answers to some of the gaps in our family knowledge. He quickly agreed to participate and began contacting other relatives to get them engaged. Rachel handled it very smoothly. She oversaw all logistics, ordered all of the test kits, and worked with family members. She appointed herself project manager and insisted on personally collecting all samples to ensure appropriate handling and delivery to the lab. Within a week, Mom had secured pledges from Dad, me, our 2 aunts, 3 cousins, and Dad's elderly uncle. Everyone was enthusiastic about the initiative. Our aunt even began going through old photo albums and paperwork to help with the study. But I understand what this is all about. Rachel is not interested in genealogy or family history. She is attempting to establish that I am not Dad's biological child. She is confident that when all of the DNA results are returned, mine will reveal that I am not genetically linked to the rest of the family. Instead of making straightforward allegations or confronting me privately, she devised this plot to make her look like the thoughtful, organized daughter while putting me in a situation where I can't refuse to participate without appearing suspicious. If I object to the DNA test, it will appear like I have something to hide. If I point out that Rachel's true purpose is to prove I'm adopted, I'll appear paranoid and defensive. She has driven me into a hole, and my only alternative is to go ahead with her plan and hope that the DNA findings definitively disprove her adoption claim. The worst part is seeing Dad become passionate about this idea. He has been calling me every few days to offer new information Rachel has discovered about genealogy research or to discuss prospective familial links we may find. He has no idea that his daughter is using his interest in family history to try to prove that his son is not his biological son. I keep reminding myself that this will backfire spectacularly when the DNA results show that I am clearly Dad's child. Rachel will have to admit that her adoption notion is absolutely incorrect, and hopefully she will cease this preoccupation. Update 2. Rachel was in charge of coordinating everything, so the DNA test kits came at her apartment. She texted our family group chat that she had received all of the test kits and will distribute them so that everyone could submit samples. She explained that she wanted to gather them all at once and send them to the lab as a batch to ensure that they were processed together. I was scheduled to see her yesterday to pick up my kit, but I had to reschedule due to a business situation. I texted her that I'd come by today instead and get it. She said that was all right, and she'd leave it with her roommate if she wasn't home. I drove over to Rachel's apartment this afternoon. Her roommate allowed me in, and explained that Rachel was running errands but had left my test kit on the kitchen counter. There were 2 test kits on the kitchen countertop. So I took one and was about to go when I realized the box had already been opened. That looked strange because these kits are supposed to remain sealed until you're ready to utilize them. I opened the box to ensure everything was inside. And that's when I noticed that someone had already spit in the saliva collection tube. I stared at this tube for about 5 minutes, trying to figure out what I was seeing. The collection tube was supposed to be empty when I got it. I was meant to spit into it, seal it, and submit it to the lab, but the tube already had saliva. My first assumption was that Rachel had mistakenly handed me someone else's completed kit. Perhaps she messed up the boxes and gave me a relative's sample by mistake. But then I glanced through the documentation in the box, and it was evident that my name was on every form. That's when it struck me. Rachel planned to submit someone else's DNA sample under my name. I quickly called her to find out what was going on with my test kit. She seemed perplexed and asked what I meant. I told her that the collecting tube already contained saliva and that the form had my name on it, and there was a long quiet on the phone. Then she laughed and said it was all a joke. She explained that she was testing me to see if I would notice, and she was impressed that I did. She claimed she had filled the tube with her own saliva as a hoax and that she had my actual test kit waiting for me. I told her it wasn't humorous, that tampering with DNA samples was not a joke. She insisted it was all in good fun. When I came home, I thought about it again. I contacted her back and demanded to know whose DNA was in the collection tube. She tried to shrug me off again, but I persisted. Finally, she admitted to asking her friend Clara to supply the sample. Clara is Rachel's co-worker, and I've met her maybe twice at Rachel's events. She is not related to our family in any way. If Clara's DNA was submitted under my name, the findings would reveal no genetic tie with Dad or any of our other relatives. I questioned Rachel directly why she would do this. Why would she try to submit another person's DNA under my name? What did she hope to accomplish? That's when she stopped pretending it was a joke. She claimed she needed to know the truth about my parentage and was defending Dad's interests. She said that if I was really Dad's kid, I shouldn't be frightened to take the test properly. But if I had anything to hide, this would expose it. Her logic made no sense. She seemed to believe that submitting phony DNA under my name would reveal me as a fraud. For example, if the phony results revealed that I was unrelated to the family, her adoption argument would be proven right. I attempted to describe how insane this was. I informed her that contributing someone else's DNA would only confirm that Clara is unrelated to our family, which we already knew. It would not prove anything about my true genetic tie with Dad. But Rachel was not listening to logic. She insisted that I was hiding something, and that my reaction to her plan demonstrated my fear of the truth. She explained that if I was indeed Dad's biological son, I should have no trouble taking the DNA test legally. I assured her that I would take the test officially, but that I wanted a fully fresh kit that she had never handled. I stated that I would order my own test directly from the lab and submit it myself to ensure there was no tampering. Rachel became enraged and accused me of being paranoid and sabotaging the family genealogical effort. She claimed that everyone was thrilled about the research and that I was ruining it with my suspicious conduct. I pointed her that she was the one acting suspiciously by attempting to submit forged DNA samples. But she just continued deflecting and stating I was overreacting to what she described as a harmless prank. She hung up on me when I stated I was going to tell Dad about what she had tried to do. She quickly texted me, pleading me not to involve Dad and promised not to tamper with my actual DNA sample if I just let it go. I will not let this go. Rachel attempted to commit fraud by submitting someone else's DNA in my name. This goes much beyond bizarre suspicions regarding my parentage. I ordered my DNA test kit directly from the lab today. I'll submit an authentic sample and receive legitimate findings that indicate I'm Dad's kid. This is far worse than I expected. Update 3. The DNA results came back, and I am absolutely Dad's biological child. But Rachel's reaction to this proof has been utterly insane, and I'm beginning to worry about her mental health. I received my findings first because I ordered my individual kit directly from the lab while Rachel was still planning the family batch testing. My results were exactly what I expected, a 50% genetic match with Dad, unambiguous genetic ties with our aunts and cousins, and European ancestry that matches our known family background. Everything fit perfectly with what you'd expect from someone who is clearly a member of this family. I was genuinely relieved to hear scientific confirmation of something I'd never questioned. I hoped that this would finally put a stop to Rachel's odd adoption conspiracy and allow us to move on from the whole fiasco. I decided to show Rachel the results before telling the rest of the family. I believed this would offer her a chance to admit her mistake and perhaps apologize for all the allegations and sabotage attempts. This was a mistake. When I showed Rachel my DNA results, she stared at them for a long time, saying nothing. She then began asking extensive questions regarding the testing process. Where did I order the kit? How did I submit my sample? Was I sure the lab didn't mix up the samples? Had anyone else handled my testing kit? I indicated that I had ordered the kit directly from the company's website, submitted the sample myself, and monitored the entire process to ensure that there was no contamination or mix-up. The results were undeniably accurate. Rachel responded by accusing me of tampering with the exam. She argued the results couldn't be valid because she knew I wasn't Dad's biological child. She insisted that I had found a technique to manipulate the testing procedure. I asked her what evidence she had for believing I wasn't Dad's son, and she began listing utterly random things. She mentioned that I held my fork differently than Dad does. She claims my laugh sounds forced when I'm among relatives, and she believes I've always been too eager to fit in with the family, proving I don't truly belong. This is absolutely crazy reasoning. She's transforming ordinary human behaviors into evidence of a huge deceit about my parentage. But things get worse. Rachel has decided that everyone in the family should retake their DNA testing at a separate facility. She claims she does not trust the company we employed and believes we should seek independent verification of the data from a separate testing provider. She has been calling family members individually to offer her concept. She explains that DNA testing might be unreliable and that results should be confirmed by various labs. The most manipulative aspect is how she frames things for Dad. She is not telling him that she believes I am adopted or that she attempted to sabotage my original test. Instead, she presents herself as a meticulous researcher who wants to ensure that our family genealogical project contains the most accurate information available. Dad believes this is reasonable. He is unaware of Rachel's adoption notion or sabotage attempt. So to him, this appears to be Rachel's meticulous approach to the genealogy effort. He consented to take another test and invited other family members to take part in the expanded investigation. Rachel has already bought additional test kits from another company. She's organizing the collecting procedure again, which makes me worried after her prior sabotage attempt. But this time, I'll make sure Dad is present when I give my sample, and I'll photograph the sealed kit to record the chain of custody. The irritating part is that I know the new results will only confirm what we already know. I will take the test as Dad's biological child again since that is who I am. However, Rachel appears to be sure that a separate lab will generate results that support her adoption theory. I'm starting to suspect Rachel has developed some sort of mental disorder centered on my parentage. She developed this conspiracy hypothesis and now rejects any information that contradicts it. When reality doesn't fit her views, she concludes that reality must be incorrect. I am tempted to tell Dad everything, but I'm afraid he will not believe me. Rachel's behavior appears so sensible on the surface that my charges may sound like psychotic babbling. She's also been careful not to express her adoption hypothesis in front of Dad explicitly. I believe my best plan is to proceed with a second round of testing and allow the data to speak for themselves. When the new lab certifies that I am Dad's biological child, Rachel will have to confront the truth that multiple independent tests have yielded the same result. This entire scenario has progressed from bothersome to actually concerning. I'm not only dealing with sibling rivalry or inheritance concern anymore. I believe Rachel is experiencing a psychiatric crisis and is obsessed with showing that I am not a member of the family. Update 4. I told Dad everything, and Rachel is no longer in my life. This entire thing has erupted in ways I never expected, and I'm honestly grateful it's finished. The second set of DNA tests yielded identical results as the first round. It's shocking, I know. I am still Dad's biological son, genetically connected to all of our relatives, and have the same heritage markers. The findings were basically photocopies of my first test. When Rachel was presented with identical data from 2 independent labs, I expected her to finally accept reality, but she doubled down more than ever. She immediately began investigating DNA testing accuracy rates, discovering some obscure reports on laboratory failures. She began to assert that both labs had made the same mistake, or that there was some sort of systemic contamination affecting my samples especially. However, she reached a breaking point when she began contacting other family members directly with her adoption notion. She had previously kept her doubts fairly hidden, but after the second round of test results revealed I was Dad's son, she evidently decided that subtlety was no longer an option. She called our cousin Ethan and expressed significant doubts about my origins, believing Dad was deceiving himself about having a biological son. She requested Ethan to assist her persuade Dad to request a third round of tests at a lab she would personally choose and oversee. This conversation confused Ethan totally. He immediately called Dad and informed him that Rachel appeared to be having a breakdown regarding family DNA and making odd assertions about me being adopted. Dad called me soon away and asked what the heck was going on. I realized I couldn't keep Rachel from acting out anymore. She had graduated to involve extended family in her delusions, and Dad deserved to know what his daughter was up to. I told him everything. Her months of suspicious comments and adoption implications, as well as her manipulation of the family genealogy project, were all attempts to reveal my alleged false paternity. Dad listened to the entire thing in total quiet. When I continued, there was a lengthy pause, and then he replied, "She's been trying to prove you're not my son." Why would she do that? I told him it was related to his will update, and Rachel appeared to be attempting to remove me from his inheritance. Dad became very silent and stated that he needed to speak with Rachel immediately. The confrontation with Rachel did not go well. Dad summoned her to his house and asked her directly whether she was doubting my parentage and attempting to prove I was adopted. Rachel initially denied it, but when Dad brought up the DNA test sabotage and her calls to family members, she felt there was no use in lying any longer. She revealed that she didn't believe I was Dad's biological son, and had been trying to prove it for months. She claimed she was protecting Dad's interests and ensuring his inheritance went to his legitimate child. She stated she was doing this out of love and loyalty to her father. Dad asked her what possible evidence she had for believing I wasn't his kid, and Rachel began repeating the ludicrous remarks she had made with me. She also recounted some childhood recollections that she said were incompatible with me being his biological kid. Dad told her that her proof was utterly ludicrous, and that she was attempting to destroy her brother's connection with his family based only on obsessive assumption. He stated he was ashamed of her actions and couldn't understand how she had convinced herself to be so nasty. Rachel burst into tears and insisted that she was correct about me, that the DNA tests were inaccurate, and that Dad was duped. She asked him to conduct one more round of testing at a lab that she would personally verify and oversee. That's when Dad lost his cool. He told Rachel she was insane and that her fixation with proving I wasn't his son had irreparably harmed our family. He said he couldn't trust her anymore and didn't want her around until she sought professional therapy for whatever psychiatric issues were causing her conduct. Rachel left Dad's place that day and has not communicated with either of us since. She has disabled my phone number and social media accounts. She's also supposedly blocked Dad because he claims his calls go directly to voicemail and his texts aren't delivered. Dad continued questioning why I hadn't notified him about Rachel's behavior sooner, and I answered that I hoped she'd come to her senses and didn't want to generate family turmoil over what appeared to be momentary paranoia. But Dad said he was relieved I finally told him the truth because Rachel's behavior had been escalating and may have become worse if left uncontrolled. Dad is determined that Rachel requires professional psychological assistance before he can consider having a relationship with her again. He has told her, through other family members, that he will pay for therapy if she is prepared to address whatever is driving her to this conduct, but that he will not allow any further contact until she admits that her adoption hypothesis was delusional. As for me, I'm done with Rachel for good. I don't care if she seeks assistance or admits she was wrong. She spent months attempting to undermine my bond with my father and separate me from my own family. She attempted fraud by submitting phony DNA samples in my name. She enlisted extended family members in her campaign against me. Dad has told me he is reconsidering several aspects of his estate planning. He won't give me any information, but I believe Rachel's inheritance status has changed dramatically. He has stated that trust and loyalty are significant variables in how he views family legacy. I understand that some people believe I should forgive Rachel if she seeks assistance and apologizes, but I am not interested in reconciliation. Certain betrayals are too basic to overcome. She attempted to erase me from my own family. That's not something I can get over.